There's a kind of silence I've known really well. It's the kind that doesn't come from peace as much as it comes from fear. They're the kind of silence that forms in the gap between needing help and not knowing how to ask for it. And it's not pride that kept me quiet, it was survival and conditioning. It was this unspoken rule that needing is weakness and that requesting support is surrender, and that being okay is the only acceptable state to present to the world around me. But what I've come to realize is this. When asking for help feels like losing, we're not really dealing with logic. We're really dealing with old wounds. See, somewhere along the way, many of us learned to ask is to really admit failure, and that to need is to be a burden, and that to say, I can't do this alone, is to risk being left alone altogether. And it's no wonder that so many of us carry our struggles silently. It's not because we want to be stoic heroes, but because we're afraid of what it means to be seen in need, afraid of what it would cost to be vulnerable in a world that sometimes punishes tenderness. And for some of us, the message was fairly loud. Toughen up, stop crying, figure it out. Whereas for others, it was more subtle. Praise for independence, admiration for the resilience, and this quiet nod whenever they kept their problems to themselves. And over time, this equation formed. Strength equals silence, worth equals self-sufficiency, and help becomes this foreign language. But no matter how fluent I became in functioning, there were moments or cracks in the day, if you will, when the pain bled through and when my mask slipped, even if just internally. And to catch myself staring blankly at a screen, not from distraction as much as from emotional fatigue that I didn't really have words for. I found myself avoiding texts, not because I didn't care, but because I just didn't have the energy to say, I'm not okay, without fearing that that confession might unravel more. There's a loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from feeling like help is always just slightly out of reach. Like it's something available to others, but somehow not quite for me. And I've sat with people in deep pain who say the same thing. They say, I don't know how to ask. Or worse, I thought no one would care if I did. And so we adapt and we become masters at appearing functional, at keeping it together, at smiling in public while we're unraveling in private. And we excel at carrying this invisible weight. Some of us even build this entire identity around being the one who helps others, just so that we never have to be the one who's in need. But the cost to all this, the cost is steep. See, when we're always the strong one, we forget how to be held. When we equate composure with value and we cut ourselves off from every connection that might heal us, when we deny ourselves this permission to need, we're in essence building relationships on one-way streets, ones where love can only flow out but never come in. And the truth is, asking for help does not weaken our integrity. It really tests it. It asks whether we're willing to live in alignment with what's really on the inside, even if that's fragile, even if that is, even if it feels like it's undeserving. So often the fear isn't just about asking, it's more about being seen. It's about having someone look into the parts of us that we've spent years concealing. The overwhelmed part, the exhausted part, the part that's been holding everything together with this metaphorical duct tape and a prayer. And yet, every time I've mustered the courage to say, I don't know how to do this alone, something surprising has happened. And it's not always comforting. It's not always immediate in its solutions, but something more precious, I would say. And it's this simple, sacred presence of another person saying, you don't have to carry this alone anymore. And that moment, that shared humanity is, I believe, what this bridge back to intimacy could look like. It's where integrity and intimacy like intertwine, not in perfection, but more in honest need. And it's strange, isn't it? Like how we can long so deeply for connection, and yet we flinch at the very doorway to it. And asking for help feels like we're standing naked in a room where we're not sure if warmth or ridicule awaits. It's vulnerable, yeah, but it's also quite revealing. It reveals how much we still associate invisibility with danger, and how much our worth feels bound to performance, and how much we fear if we break the image of the one who's fine, that the people around us are going to scatter. See, this isn't just personal, it's cultural too, I believe. We live in a world that praises autonomy and shames dependency. And the myth of the self-made person, the lone wolf, the hyper-capable achiever, I mean, it runs deep. But none of us gets here alone. I mean, not really. We see behind every person who seems like so put together, there's a trail, I believe, of silent sacrifices, sleepless nights, and moments that they wish someone had said, you don't have to keep proving yourself like this. But few of us hear that, right? Instead, we get rewarded for pushing through and for swallowing our emotion and for showing up even when it costs us everything. And the applause comes when we survive, not when we soften. And so we do what we've learned to do. We protect our image, even when it starves our soul. We say, I've got this, when we don't really do. And we say, I'm fine, when really we're unraveling. And when the pain grows too loud to ignore, we don't reach out. We instead withdraw further still. And we tell ourselves, no one would get it anyway. Or worse, I should be able to handle this by now. But here's what I've had to wrestle with. It's not weakness to struggle as much as seeing weakness as human. And more than that, it's honest. It's like integrity doesn't always mean being strong. It means that we're willing to be real. And sometimes real looks like breaking down. Sometimes real sounds like saying, I just don't know what to do next. See, the challenge isn't just about asking for help. It's about unlearning the shame that surrounds it in the first place. It's about recognizing that we don't need to earn care, that we're allowed to be held. And even if we haven't hit some invisible rock bottom, that really needing others doesn't make us any less as much as it makes us feel more human. And yet many of us have never been taught how to articulate our need without apologizing for it. We say things like, I hate to bother you, or it's probably nothing but, as if our pain is more of an inconvenience, as if we have to preface our vulnerability with disclaimers just so that we can be worthy of some compassion. But what if we didn't have to be begged for, right? What if it didn't require utter collapse? What if the first signs of strain were enough to be met with tenderness? What if the act of asking was seen not as surrender, but more as wisdom? To get there, I think we have to start small, right? We have to practice honesty in safe spaces. We have to learn to name our needs, not just when they're screaming for attention, but when they're whispering. We have to learn the language of interdependence, not codependence, not total detachment, but something in between, something that is courageous to embrace, something that's mutual. See, I remember the first time I truly asked for help without wrapping it in an apology. And my voice was not strong. My chest was tight, but I still spoke and I said, I'm not okay. And I don't know what I need, but I know I don't want to keep pretending. And in return, I wasn't met with pity, but I was met with presence. That moment did not fix everything, but it shifted everything inside for me. It began to untangle this lie that I only deserved love when I was strong. I began to write the story that said I had to earn belonging through silence and self-sufficiency. And it made me wonder how many others are still carrying unspoken needs even right now. How many of us are waiting for permission to be honest? How many of us are dying on the inside while externally we're being praised for holding it all together? You see, it's easy to miss these signs. People, we're so good at surviving, but we often become invisible in our suffering and in the process. I mean, we show up, we smile, we keep the world spinning, but on the inside, we're begging for someone just to notice the cracks. And not everyone knows how to ask for help. I mean, some express it through irritability, others through isolation. Some people just overfunction, hoping that someone will finally see the cost of their competence. Others underfunction, hoping that someone will step in before they utterly disappear altogether. So maybe the question isn't just why don't people ask for help? Maybe the better question is what made them believe that they had to handle this alone in the first place? See, when I look at it that way, it becomes less about teaching people to speak up and more about building a world where it's safe to actually speak up. A world where intimacy isn't conditional on competence. A world where integrity includes softness and where asking isn't treated as a weakness, but as an invitation into something deeper. We were not made to carry this all alone. But many of us, we grew up in these environments, whether familial or cultural or even religious, where strength was defined by silence, where survival was admired and struggle was shamed, and where help came with strings or conditions or even costs. And so we learned it's safer to pretend, it's safer to stay quiet, and just to disappear into competence. But silence is a heavy weight, isn't it? It numbs and hardens us. And over time, it becomes this wall, not just between us and others, but even between us and ourselves. And we forget what we even feel. We forget what we need. And we only know that we're tired and lonely. And we know that something is quietly breaking us. And yet the world continues praising us for our competence, saying you're so reliable and you always have it together. And I don't know how you do it. I mean, they mean well, right? But they don't realize they're applauding the mask that we wear. They don't realize that they're reinforcing this lie that says, don't stop, don't rest, don't show what's real. So we become performers of strength and masters of composure and experts at bypassing our own needs. And inside, the loneliness grows. Not just the loneliness of being unseen, but also the loneliness of not even knowing how to let ourselves be seen. And when we finally do ask for help, it often comes in jagged ways, in defensive and awkward ways. We might wait until we're already overwhelmed, or we might lash out first and then try to backpedal. We might speak in riddles, hoping someone will decode the deeper message that we're too afraid to say plainly. The message that says, would you sit with me? Please tell me I don't have to keep holding this alone. And if we're met with dismissal, I mean, our courage continues to be minimized, right? Or mocked, or even ignored. So we retreat further. We vow never to open up again, and we harden ourselves, and we perform even better next time. And this is the cost of performance. It's really intimacy at the heart of it. Because intimacy cannot grow where need is punished. It can't root in soil where vulnerability is unsafe. It can't bloom in rooms where we're the only welcome when we're polished. This is why asking for help isn't just about words. It's about unlearning that's required to say the very thing. The trust that we have to rebuild with ourselves. The story that we have to rewrite about our own worth. help does not mean we're failing. Help really means that we're alive. It means we're human. It means we're actually letting someone in, not to fix us, but to witness us. And witnessing is everything. There is something profoundly healing about being met in our need, about being seen not just in our competence, but in our chaos as well. Not just in our gifts, but in our grief as well. Not just in, I've got this, but in, I don't know how to keep going. And this is where the bridge to others becomes possible. When we risk being honest, when we say, I need help without shame, when we allow others to care for us and let them in. But you see, we must also grieve what we didn't get to. The times that we were asking for help and we were ignored. The moments that we reached out and were punished for it. The years that we spent convincing ourselves that needing made us less lovable. See, we can't pretend our fear of asking came from nowhere. It has a history, from memory, from the way we help was distorted and withheld and used against us. And that's what makes reclaiming it so powerful. To ask for help now is not a weakness. It's a reclamation. It's a rebellion against the lie that we are only worthy when we are useful. It is this return to truth that love is not a transaction, that help isn't just about support. It's also about surrendering, and not surrendering our dignity as much as in surrendering the illusion that we were only valuable when we were fine. And when we make that surrender, something strange happens where we don't feel smaller. We actually we feel bigger, not with an inflated ego, but with this expanded connection. We feel less alone and more real, because we discover that we were never supposed to be carrying this kind of a weight. And that's the secret that isn't really told. Everyone is aching for relief. Everyone is hoping that someone will go first. Everyone is waiting, in essence, for permission to be more human and more honest and more free to express. And when we ask for help, we're also giving that permission to others, not just to ourselves, but that others might also piggyback on top of that. We start to see our stories in each other's eyes, and we start to feel less ashamed. We start to realize that the very thing that we thought would isolate us is the very thing that connects us deeply with others. Because we're not here to impress. We are here to connect. And we're not here to perform strength. We're actually here to experience wholeness together. And living whole means like making space for the parts of us that hurt, that need, that long for kindness. So no, asking for help is not admitting defeat. It's admitting your humanity. It's stepping out of your survival mode that you've been in for so long, and it's letting someone stand beside you, not above you. And it's one of the most intimate and courageous things that we can do, I believe. So where do we begin this process? We begin by noticing the moments that we're tempted to downplay our need. The moment that we hear ourselves saying, it's not that bad, or saying, it's not a big deal. The moment we tell someone else, I'm fine, when what we really meant to say is, I'm really falling apart, but I just don't know how to say this. So start there with honesty, even if it's quiet, even if it's clumsy. See, we begin by naming the pain without apologizing for it. And then we ask this, we ask, what would it cost me to say the real thing out loud? Often that cost feels quite unbearable, but the silence is costing us far more. It's costing us connection and joy and safety and the chance to be loved for who we are and not just what we're providing. The next step, practicing with people who have earned this space, not See, not everyone gets access to our need, but someone does. Maybe it's a friend or a therapist, a sibling that you trust. Maybe it's someone who once said, I've got space for you whenever you're ready, right? It doesn't have to be poetic. It doesn't have to be well timed. Sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, um, I don't really know how to say this, but I'm not okay. Or could you check in on me this week? Or I think I need help and I don't know what kind of help I need. And if we're on the receiving end of someone else's reach, maybe we can hold it gently. Maybe we understand the courage that it took. Maybe we listen more than we try to fix. Maybe we resist that urge to tidy up their pain with platitudes or productivity. Help, after all, is sacred. It's not just an action, it's presence. This quiet staying power of another human being saying, you don't have to hold this alone anymore. And isn't that what we're all really longing for? Not perfection, not solutions, not endless validation, but just someone who stays, someone who sees, someone who says, you matter even in the midst of this. This is how intimacy is built. Not through these grand or romantic gestures or declarations, but through this fragile, honest moments that we spend with others in their point of vulnerability. And here's the beautiful truth. Now, the more we practice asking for help, the more we're dismantling this myth that we have to be unbreakable to be lovable. And we begin to realize that our need is not a liability, it's a bridge to real connection, a bridge to being known, a bridge to building a life that doesn't rely on performance, but on presence. And yes, it will feel scary, especially for those of us who have learned to earn love by minimizing ourselves. Those of us who are rewarded for how little we needed, not how honestly we lived. But we can unlearn that script, right? We can choose relationships where mutual care is the norm and where help does not come with guilt, where vulnerability is honored and not punished. See, we can choose to be that kind of person who asks for help without shame and who offers help without any strings attached. And in so doing, we remake the world one connection at a time. We create a culture where strength includes softness, where asking is not seen as a weakness, but more as wisdom. And where the bravest thing we can do is let someone see the truth of where we're at. So here's my invitation to you. The next time you feel that unfamiliar pain rising, that the fatigue, the fear, the flicker of despair, pause, breathe, and then say the real thing, even if it's scary to do so. Say it. And then trust that somewhere someone will recognize the courage in that very act, because they've also been there as well too. And maybe they were just waiting for us to go first. Here's a final takeaway I want to leave with you. We were never meant to do this alone. And asking for help is not the end of independence. It's actually the beginning of intimacy. It's this doorway to truth and connection and healing. And we don't need to earn rest. We don't need to prove our worth. We don't need to wait until we're drowning to whisper, I can't do this by myself. We're allowed to ask. We're allowed to be met. We're allowed to be loved in the middle of the messiness, not after we try to clean it up. Because the truth is real connection begins not when we're polished, but when we're honest. And maybe today is the day that we choose to stop hiding our need. Perhaps today is the day that we finally let ourselves be seen. I'd love to hear from you. If this struck a resonant chord with you, you're not alone in this. Share with me your thoughts in the comments below.